So I recently got married and we went from having 2 cars to having just 1 car. And since I've always wanted an electric skateboard, I figured this would be the perfect time because we live within 5 kilometers of my work and buying a second car seemed to be unnecessary. So for the past month, I've been skating to work every day and this video is about my experience. So to give you a bit of background, I've skated casually for around 6 years, and that mainly has just consisted of cruising around on a penny board. I've never really learned any tricks or anything like that. I do own a regular skateboard, but up until recently, I'd never really ridden it because I found it just a bit more difficult than the cruising on the penny board. So the extent of my skateboarding when I got the electric board was fairly limited, but I thought it would kind of just be a bit of a step up from cruising around on my penny board. And to a degree, I was right, but I don't think I was fully prepared for just how fast the electric board goes. I got an Eway Flex Riot which tops out at about 40 kilometers an hour on flat ground. You can go even faster than that downhill, and let me tell you, that feels extremely fast when you're not inside a car. So it took me a couple of weeks to really get used to the board, but since then I've absolutely been loving commuting on it. So I thought I'd share some of my thoughts on my 3 favorite things about riding an electric skateboard to work and my 3 least favorite things about riding an electric skateboard to work. So first of all, my favorite thing about riding an electric skateboard to work is not having to worry about parking. At my work, there's no on-site parking unless you've worked there for a long time, which I haven't really. So I always have to find street parking, and usually the best street parking is about a 5-minute walk away from work. And so just being able to go from door to door without having to worry about finding any parking, I can just take my skateboard straight up into the office and not have to worry about it. It's the best. And I found the same thing to be true when I'm just out and about visiting friends or catching up with them at cafes. I can just ride my skateboard right up, don't have to worry about finding a park, and I can just leave my skateboard next to me in the cafe and it's super easy. So another really good thing about riding an electric skateboard to work is how much quicker it is than driving a car. So even though I live less than 5 kilometers from my work during peak hour, so around 9 AM and 5 PM, it can take about 30 minutes to get door to door from home to work in a car. And that includes parking time and all that kind of thing. But on my skateboard, I can zip straight past the traffic in the bike lane, which is really great. And I can get from door to door in about 10 minutes. This means that I don't have to leave for work as early, and I can also be home earlier, which is great. Of course, I have to be a bit extra careful when I'm riding through peak hour traffic because obviously there's more cars, which means riding in peak hour isn't usually as relaxing as just cruising around, say, a park or during non-peak hours, because you have to really be concentrating the whole time. But to me, it's totally worth it for the time savings. So the third reason why I love electric skateboarding to work is just the fact that it's heaps of fun and I love getting a bit of fresh air. I've actually found that riding on the road is part of the fun of riding an electric skateboard. Like when I've gone to just a park, for example, and ridden around on the footpaths, there's something not quite as exciting because you don't have to, dodge the traffic or avoid obstacles. Of course, sometimes I love to just go along the beach on the bike path, which is a lot more relaxed and not have to worry about obstacles, but there is just something really fun about the challenge of navigating all the obstacles on an open road. Your phone fell out.
Thank you.
Plus, it's winter here in Melbourne, so it's pretty cold, and some people might see that as a negative, but I actually quite like the cold, and so first thing in the morning, it's kind of nice to get a blast of cold, fresh air in the morning. Definitely wakes you up and gets you ready for the day. Nice and fresh this morning, that's for sure. Woo! So straight up, the worst thing about riding an electric skateboard to work is when it rains. And this is basically because you can't ride when it's wet. First of all, skateboards of all types are just notoriously slippery when it's wet. I've slipped out several times just going fairly slow on wet ground, and so it just increases that risk factor just to a point where it's kind of unreasonable to me, especially when you're riding through traffic and that sort of thing. Secondly, my skateboard is splash proof, but it's not completely waterproof, and so I don't want to ruin my skateboard just yet. So I generally avoid getting it too wet if I can. So if I ride to work, for example, and then by the time I'm ready to go home, it's raining, I usually have to catch the tram home, which isn't the worst thing in the world, but to me it kind of defeats the purpose of riding the skateboard because you're not saving money and you're not saving time. So the second worst thing about riding an electric skateboard to me is having to maintain the belts. Now, not all electric skateboards have belts like mine, but the ones that do definitely seem to attract a lot of stones within the belts. So when you're riding along, it'll just naturally kick up stones, and sometimes these will get caught in the belt and it just starts to make really weird noises and it wears out your belts pretty quick, so you have to clean them out fairly regularly. It's particularly annoying when I forget to check my belts the day before and I go to head out and I realize there's stones in the belt, so I have to pull it all apart, clean the belts out, and it's just a bit inconvenient. Luckily, it usually only takes about 5 to 10 minutes max, so it's not too bad, and it's probably my own fault for not checking my belts the day before. Plus, I have had one belt break on me, which is pretty inconvenient because I have to get my wife to come and pick me up from about 20-25 minutes away, but I don't think that happens too often. And the last thing that I find a bit inconvenient about electric skateboarding is remembering to charge it. And to be honest, this isn't really a big problem because it's my own fault for being lazy and not wanting to plug it in when I get home, but it is pretty frustrating when I go to head out somewhere and I realize that my board's only on like 50% charge and I can't really ride it to where I want to go and back. But really, that's my own problem and my own laziness and not really an issue of the board itself. So yeah, in summary, I really love riding my electric skateboard to work. Let me know in the comments if you have an electric skateboard. Do you commute to work? Are you thinking about getting an electric skateboard to commute to work? If your work's not too far away and you feel like you can confidently ride a skateboard through traffic, then I highly recommend electric skateboarding. They're heaps of fun, they save time and money, and they help you to experience your city or location in a bit of a different way to just driving around. And don't forget, if you're interested in more tech related content, then be sure to check out my tech playlist. Other than that, I hope you have an amazing day and I'll see you very soon in the next video.